Okay, this is my submission for the last module. So I want to focus on using machine learning for asthma management. Um, so the problem is currently asthma treatment is done in a reactive manner. So for example, an asthmatic is prescribed medication to kind of cope with when they have an inflammation or they're in an episode, or perhaps once it's aggravated to continuously take the medication, not so much in a predictive or a preventative matter. So the opportunity then there is, but there are wearables and sensors that can collect environmental data. Um, there are, experiments done that shows that certain data, like your the pollution levels and different chemicals in the air, can be gathered through these sensors. And then, if enough information is gathered using machine learning and, trained and from a trained model, perhaps we can, help asthmatics avoid certain areas or figure out, okay, whatever that's in your air, or what, maybe it's a certain paint or a certain product that is in your environment that is, most likely causing asthma. So then they can, prevent those episodes. So the task is to figure out how asthmatics can avoid episodes. So for that, we would first need to identify the factors that aggravate asthma, and then identify wearables that can transmit real-time data, and then identifying the main features so that a machine learning model can be trained to um, predict that a possible asthma attack is coming because you're in an environment that is most likely to cause an attack. And then to do this, you'd need to get a data set that can be used to train a machine learning model, so that can be trained to predict an asthma attack based on environmental and physiological factors. Um, Consulting experts could help speed up the process, so specialists and then other researchers that are focusing on sensors can help um, provide additional information from their existing research. So user experience and design here. So users will wear some sort of wearable, could be a wristwatch, could be, a band. Basically, it would detect the changes in the environment, could detect pollutants, like formaldehyde levels, for example, and, transmit that data to uh, um, now the model, if there's privacy concerns, can be, housed on the device itself, so there's no like cloud transmission, for example. But that is one way that these data points can be captured real time. And then user input will be collected from a paired app. So kind of like the approach of like the Nokia withings that has the for example, in the Nokia smartwatch, it captures your heart rate and blood oxygen levels, and you can see that information with a paired app. So similar approach here, so that the users can kind of see, okay, this has detected XYZ in the environment, and then also provide feedback. So it can be a questionnaire. It's like, hey, we noticed some things. Do you, experience any difficulty of breathing, or do you experience anything different? So that can be captured, and then put the app can also be used to provide information as to why a certain prediction was made. So say, hey, we noticed that there's a high level of formaldehyde, and historically users with asthma have you know had a bad reaction, and that is the case. So, and then the model will be localized and individualized so that when if the user says, "Oh yeah, I'm fine," perhaps that particular user is not really may not have a bad effect to that particular environment. So then the algorithm can, train itself and develop. Um, and then the user can also provide feedback, okay, that was a high risk, and I could, over time say, okay, I'm able to better manage or not, that type of information. Um, yeah, so the app would, be a good way to communicate that these predictions are based on environmental factors that was passed through, based on prior predictions and more generalized predictions, and that individual factors might be different. So, ethical considerations: since user data needs to be collected over time to better understand what factors can trigger. Privacy of the data is very important. So any data sharing of patient data will be explicitly stated um, um, before the user signs up, and then the user will have the ability to whether to opt in or opt out of the data collection. And then the biases will be based on each individual. So, like I mentioned before, for example, pollen is one, you know, thing that sometimes aggravates asthma on individuals. And then certain kind of pollen, some people are allergic to and some are not. So, you know, initially the model it would need a cold start. So as the person uses the app, then the model will get better. So there might be biases, initially. And then not all possible causes for asthma may not be equally represented in the cold start model because, again, since this is not widely used yet, we don't really know. And then we're limited to, documented or reported um, data. So fairness will be ensured by a strong feedback loop, and then the algorithm will be updated based on the feedback um, for the individual. And then users will be made aware of how data is collected and used. So any data that is transmitted outside of the device, the user would have to approve it and participate in that data sharing if they want to participate in that regard. Um, yeah, and then the users will be made aware of how transmitted data is used. Um, Additionally, we can anonymize the data to meet with HIPAA and other standards and protect the user. So a quick overview of the model. So wearables such as a band or a watch that has a sensor can collect environmental data like allergens, pollution levels, etc., dust particle levels, and then combine that with the app that lets the user also provide feedback on how they're feeling. The local model will get updated, and a prediction will be made. And then, if the user opts in, then say user A said, "Oh yeah, I did start feeling bad," and then the wearable has identified a high level of pollen and formaldehyde, then the local model will be updated to say, "Okay, those are two factors that needs more weight for this particular user," and then also for the general model. That we initially would use a cold start for, that can also get updated. If more than 50% of the people also have that same trend, then that general model can be updated. So for that, that data points will be collected. All right, that's it from me. Thank you.